doesn't seem. What are you looking so sad about, Jeff?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean? What I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time I did my career, I was on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
When you on the tour.
What's happening, my people? It's Cass Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's The Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, Azim Shabazz, Mike Grimm. Salute to everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, The Boxtorian. Today, the best boxers from every state in the United States. Best boxer from every state in America. Have the family today. It's Tuesday. We are still early in this big week of boxing history. Had a little change in plans. The most underrated boxers of all time will be Monday. This best boxer from every state is a two-parter. So we're going to do this Tuesday and Wednesday. And of course, the new series starts Thursday, Boxing Around the World, with a history of boxing in Afghanistan. Alphabetical order, just like the boxing in the States. We're going to go through all alphabetical order, not every country, but we're going to find some boxing history and some other significant events like great venues in these countries, great fights that occurred in these countries, and of course, some great boxers from the countries. So that's coming up starting Thursday. And then Friday is the first Friday of the month. So we're going to profile an active boxer. This week, the life and career of Gervonta Tank Davis. Okay? But first, for the highlights of boxing history today, we are down to the flyweight division, 112. Okay? We've been all the way from heavyweight, going through all the divisions, looking at the top 10 greatest of all time. Then in a few days, about 2 more days, because we got flyweight, junior flyweight, minimum weight, that's it. We're going to go back to heavyweight and look at the top 10 active boxers in every division. So let's get to the highlights of boxing history for today. It's 12 again. Sometimes you can't narrow it down to 10. Top 12 flyweights of all time, 112. Highlights of boxing history. Couple of great flyweights there. I know that. I think that's Flash Alade, the great Filipino, on the left. So let's get to it. The top 12 flyweights of all time. Then the greatest boxers from every state in the United States. Okay? We're going to go from 12 down to 1 with these flyweights. Okay, just very brief. Number 12, Maceo Oba. Maceo Oba. Here's Maceo. A tall, skillful flyweight with quick hands and a terrific jab. Oba's career was cut short when he died in a car accident at the age of 23, but he had already established himself as a Hall of Fame champion with wins over Burkwork, Charvankai, Rocky Garcia, Betulio Gonzalez, and Orlando Amores. Maceo Oba. Number 11, Kone Kingpetch. He became Thailand's first world boxing champion when he defeated the great Pascual Perez in 1960. Another win over Perez followed, as well as wins over the Fighting Geraldo and Hiroyuki Ebihara. Kone Kingpetch, first ever Thailand world boxing champion. Number 10, Peter Kane. Peter Kane. An exciting battler with two-fisted power, Kane gave the great Benny Lynch 2 of his toughest fights and defeated the likes of Jackie Jurich, Jimmy Warnock, Theo Medina, and Jimmy Stubbs. With 53 knockouts in 98 fights against only 8 losses, Kane is clearly an all-time great. Peter Kane, all-time great. Number 9, Betulio Gonzalez, top 12 flyweights of all time, 112 division. Betulio Gonzalez. Okay? This tough and clever pugilist won the flyweight title 3 times with a long career that includes 77 wins, a trilogy with the great Miguel Cantu, and battles against Luis Ibarra, Gudi Espados, Shoji Oguma, and Maceo Oba. It remains a mystery why the man revered in Venezuela as the country's greatest fighter is not in the Hall of Fame. Betulio Gonzalez, another one, not in the Hall of Fame. It's baffling. I don't know what the Hall of Fame criteria is. If Rocky and what's the guy over there in Saudi Arabia? If they in the Hall of Fame and Betulio Gonzalez not in there, I don't understand it. Number 8, Midget Wolgast. Midget Wolgast. Number 8 on the top greatest flyweights of all time. Quick and clever. Wolgast was an incredibly prolific fighter with some 200 fights to his credit. He holds wins over Archie Bell, Ron Zurita, Black Bill, Jackie Brown, and Johnny McCoy. Midget Wolgast. Number 7, the great Benny Lynch. The great legendary Benny Lynch. One of the greatest flyweights and the finest boxer ever to come out of Scotland. Okay, Benny Lynch. Defeated Jackie Jurich, Peter Kane, John Tut Whaley, and Jackie Brown, among others. Ring Magazine founder Ned Fleischer ranked him as the 5th greatest flyweight of all time. That's high praise. Ned Fleischer, one of the greatest historians of all time. Founder of the Bible of Boxing, the Ring Magazine. That Ned Fleischer. Okay. Number 6, Miguel Cantu. The great Miguel Cantu, I might add. There's Miguel. Miguel Cantu. Cantu won the WBC flyweight title in 1973 and defended it 14 times, defeating such fighters as Shoji Oguma, Betulio Gonzalez, Antonio Avilar, Kimiyo Furusawa, Orlando Maldonado, and Sung Jun Kim. Without question, one of Mexico's all-time greatest boxers, Miguel Cantu. Without question, one of Mexico's greatest. Yes, sir. Top 5 flyweights of all time, the 112 division. Number 5, Frankie Gennaro. Frankie Gennaro. Mike Mazik has entered the building. Salute, Mike. How are you today? We're down to flyweight, going through all the divisions, top 10 or 12 or 15. Sometimes you can't get it down to 10. Lightweight, we had top 15, top 12 today. Salute, Mike. Number 5, Frankie Gennaro. A standout fighter and champion during a highly competitive era for the flyweight division. Gennaro holds wins over such greats as Eddie O'Dowd, George Marks, Carl Tremaine, Frankie Garcia, Joey Archibald, and the legendary Pancho Villa. Ned Fleischer, Charlie Rose, and Herb Goldman all ranked Gennaro in the all-time top 5 for the flyweight division. Same here. Okay, number 5. And I always like to say who these fighters fought because that describes a fighter. Who not wins and losses. Who did you get those wins against? And then also importantly, when did you get them against them? Okay. Wins. When and who. 2 of the big keys when you're trying to define greatness. When and who. Number 4, Fidel LaBarba. Fidel LaBarba, yeah. When and who did you get these wins against? That's very important. Fidel LaBarba, that's Fidel walking away happy. Then put somebody on their backside. Hard to hit and quick on his feet. LaBarba has an outstanding record with wins over a long list of great fighters, including Charles Bud Taylor, Frankie Gennaro, Kid Chocolate, Elkie Clark, Georgie Rivers, and Petey Saran, the great Petey Saran. Number 3, all-time great flyweights. The legendary Pascual Perez. Legendary Pascual Perez. That's Pascual on the right. Packing tremendous punching power in a small frame, This Olympic gold medalist and world champion, one of Argentina's all-time greatest, not to mention the country's first world champion. 57 knockouts and 84 wins against only 7 defeats. Historian Herb Goldman rates him as the second best flyweight of all time. Okay. Number 2, greatest flyweights of all time. Another legendary one, Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa. When you're talking about greatest Filipino fighters, not automatically Manny Pacquiao. This man right here makes a great argument for it. Pancho Villa. His career was truly great, and almost a century later, he remains one of the greatest Asian boxers of all time, not just Filipino, Asian, period. Only 23 when he died from blood poisoning in 1925. Young Francisco Goledo established himself as an all-time great fighter in just 3 years of frenzied action, known as Pancho Villa in the ring. Real name was Francisco Goledo. In 1922, he arrived in America and soon became a huge attraction, defeating the great Jimmy Wald, Georgie Marks, Bud Taylor, Johnny Buff, Abe Goldstein, and dropping 2 close decisions to Frankie Gennaro, one of which was widely viewed as a blatant robbery. The great Pancho Villa, arguably the greatest Filipino fighter of all time, okay? He also died at only 23. If he'd have went up into his prime, into his 30s, Manny Pacquiao wouldn't have anything coming as the greatest Filipino. This man is still arguably Pancho Villa. Only fought till he was 23, went nowhere near his prime, okay? And number 1, the greatest flyweight of all time, the legendary Jimmy Wald. Jimmy Wald, that's Jimmy on the left, getting ready to go on the attack. Jimmy Wald. Pound for pound, one of the most prolific and most powerful of all fighters. There's no question that the Tylerstown Terror is the all-time greatest flyweight. He began boxing as a teenager in so-called booth belts, and no one knows how many fights he had. Estimates range between, get this, 500 and 700 fights for this man. He went on to campaign as a legit professional, where he authored the longest winning streak in boxing history, 103 fights without a single loss. By the time he won the world title in 1916, he had already cleaned out the division and was a living legend. You know, and back around that time, record keeping wasn't all that great, so estimates say he had between 500 to 700 fights. Okay. 103-0 out the gate. The legendary Jimmy Wald, greatest flyweight of all time. Okay. So now, the best boxer every state in the country, and I couldn't resist it. I had to do it. There's our map. Boxing in the States is over, but I dusted it off and pulled it right back out. Didn't even stay in the closet a week. Okay. Yeah, the best boxer in every state. There's all the states, right? So I thought the map was appropriate. Okay, so let's get into it. The best boxer from every state in the United States. How's everybody? It's Tuesday. We're still early in this big week of boxing history. It is going to be a big week too. Tomorrow will be part 2 of this, and then remember the new series Thursday, Boxing Around the World, on the heels of Boxing in the States. Same thing on Thursdays. It's going to go around to different countries in the world this time and look at history, some great venues and fights in these countries and great fighters. Not every country, but a lot of them. Afghanistan is first, and I found a nice boxing history for Afghanistan. And some great boxers from that country too, so yeah. Learned a lot from the boxing in the States about these states. So surely we're going to learn some things about these countries now. But let's look at the best boxer in every state in America now. Okay? This always happens. Oh, I put it in wrong. I put the best boxers in the United States. It's the best boxers from every state. I think we did the best boxers in the United States before. Time permitting, we're going to go over a short history of boxing in the United States at the end too. You know, since we're looking at the best boxers. Oh, come on, man. Bear with me for a moment, please. This is getting on my nerves now. There it is right there. See, I get mad fast. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Right up. I think. We in July, we got some great fight cards coming up too. I mean, some doozies. Okay, bear with me for a moment. There we go. Wow. Okay. The greatest boxer from each state in America. Okay. Appreciate everybody that's stopped through so far today. So far we got Mike Mazik, Mike Grimm, Azim Shabazz, and Miss Cass. Now, although boxing has been relegated to niche status in the United States, it is so firmly rooted in America's sporting consciousness that the country continues to produce myriad world champions to complement the sport's robust history of legendary figures. And today we're going to look at the greatest fighters from each state by birth, okay? Like for instance, Tommy Hearns will represent Tennessee. Okay, we know his career played out in Michigan, but we're going by birth. Sugar Ray Leonard was in Maryland when his boxing career played out, but he was born in North Carolina, so he will represent North Carolina. It's by birth state, okay? Not what state you boxed out of. Now, for decades, boxing, along with horse racing and baseball, was central to American sporting life. The world's heavyweight champion was the most accomplished and celebrated and famous figure in sports. And fights sold out ballparks, stadiums, and arenas. Or they had massive structures built specifically to accommodate fights. But time passed by and the landscape shifted. But somehow, despite often being mired in scandal and comically corrupt, corrupt politics, boxing promoters, that sort of thing. Boxing perseveres. Even if the likes of the NFL, NBA, and NCAA football and basketball have long since surpassed it. But as popular as America's marquee leagues have become, they will never match boxing's fascinating, rich, and quirky history. Never. The shared diversity of the United States is a key contributing factor in the quality of boxers it consistently produces. As immigrants and first-generation Americans from every continent have made names for themselves in boxing, right? Waded into the cauldron of cities like New York, Detroit, and Philadelphia to test themselves against the best competition in the world. Now, there's a significant difference between a fighter merely being born somewhere and the location of their boxing upbringing. Like I was saying, for the sake of this list, we're going with birthplace. Like Thomas Hearns will represent Tennessee, Sugar Ray, North Carolina, although their boxing careers played out of Detroit and Maryland. Okay, so that's how we're doing it by birth. Now, there's like 6 states, like obscure boxing states, where there's not a big pool of boxers to pick from. So we're going to talk about them first. Get them out of the way before we go into the alphabetical order. Now, unfortunately, not every state has a storied boxing history or a deep talent pool to draw from for rankings like this. Okay. And those states are first Alaska. Now, because it is geographically isolated for every state in America, securing marquee fights is difficult for any fighter based in Alaska. In fact, the state has only played host to a select number of professional fight cards, although Hector Camacho did fight there in 1983. Now, David Curry, a 2008 U.S. Olympic team member, although he did not box in the games, he was a standout amateur. He was a longtime Alaska resident who was born there. He now runs a boxing academy in Anchorage. Okay. Another obscure state is New Hampshire. Okay, salute Define Arnie One. Good to see you today. We changed it around, Define Arnie One. We're going to do the best boxers from every state because it's 2 parts. And the most underrated fighters in history will be Monday, because this is going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, but salute Define Arnie One in the building. Yeah, New Hampshire. Now, the only recognizable name from research conducted into New Hampshire's boxing history was Nottingham's Jason LeHollier. 21 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw, 8 knockouts. He was a journeyman who fought for a slew of minor and regional titles during his career. But he did face the likes of Carson Jones and Julio Cesar Chavez and Peter Quillin. Now, this will be a surprise here. Obscure boxing state as far as boxers that came from there, Nevada. Now, Nevada, because of Las Vegas, has a practically unmatched boxing tradition. But curiously, though, the state itself has not produced an abundance of elite fighters. Now, while the likes of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Mike Tyson have called Nevada home, Nevada tends to be a state where boxers migrate to, not come from. Okay. That said, Ishii Smith is the first Las Vegas-born boxer to win a world title. And Nevada does have a bright future because of, all the events that go on there in boxing. But as far as boxers that come from there, it's one of the obscure states. North Dakota. Now, had this list not categorized boxers by birthplace, 1984 Olympic silver medalist and light heavyweight stalwart Virgil Hill, 51 wins, 7 losses, 24 knockouts, would have been an easy selection for North Dakota. But Hill was born in Missouri. But he boxed out of Williston, North Dakota, and had his farewell fight in Bismarck, North Dakota. Over a remarkable career spanning 58 fights, he went 24 and 7 knockouts in world championship fights. But the list is by birthplace, so Hill doesn't count for North Dakota. Another one, South Dakota. Now, Sean Hawk, 23 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 17 knockouts. A member of the Crow Creek Sioux tribe, stands out as a notable fighter from South Dakota. From Sioux Falls specifically. Hawk had a reported 108 win, 12 loss amateur career. And as a pro, he challenged then WBO light heavyweight champion Nathan Cleverly on short notice in 2012 and was stopped in 8 rounds. And he never fought again after that. Okay. And finally, Wyoming. Ryan Bresky, who fought out of Gillette, Wyoming, was an alternate on the 1996 U.S. Olympic team and made the state's list of its 50 greatest sports figures. Okay. As a pro, Bresky only went 6 wins and 1 loss, but guess what? He had a 100% knockout rate. 6 wins, 1 loss, 6 knockouts. And he retired in 2000. Okay, so now, you remember we talked about Wyoming last week. Remember Wyatt Earp organized Wyoming's most famous boxing match, remember? Between Mike Donovan and John Shaughnessy. And Mike Donovan was the one that introduced Wyatt Earp to Doc Holliday. So now let's go through the best boxers from every state, alphabetical order. Those were just a couple states where there wasn't a big pool to pick from. Okay. Alabama. Going by birth. So Alabama, the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. That's where he was originally from. And remember, we're not going by where these fighters boxed out of. We're going by where they were born at. So Alabama is Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. Pro record, 66 wins, 3 losses, with 52 knockouts for the Brown Bomber. Career knockout ratio, 78.7%. Up around 80. Not bad. If he wouldn't have came back after he retired, he would have been at 80%. But those other fights that he lost when he came, all those fights he lost when he came back, put him under 80. But okay. Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. Now it's fitting that the individual entries on this list start with legendary heavyweight champion Joe Louis, one of the greatest fighters in boxing history, and a man who transcended sports to become an icon and inspiration to African Americans, as well as a unifying force on the precipice of World War II. Lewis's records and accolades speak for themselves. 25 consecutive defenses of his title, a record that still stands to this day as the standard for any division in boxing. A nearly 12-year reign as heavyweight champion, also a record. He was named the Ring's Fighter of the Year on 4 occasions, 1936, 1938, 1939, and 1941. 3 out of 4 years right there. And he is generally regarded as one of boxing's greatest pure power punchers, the Brown Bomber. Now, despite his infamous Bum of the Month club, Louis shared the ring with fellow luminaries like Rocky Marciano, Jersey Joe Walcott, Billy Conn, Ezzard Charles, John Henry Lewis, Jimmy Bivens, and famously, German Max Schmeling twice. Having lost to Schmeling in 1936 by knockout in Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year, Louis avenged his defeat by punishing first-round knockout in one of boxing's truly transcendent events as the world headed towards war. Eventually, Louis and Schmeling became friends, a testament to both their characters. Although Louis struggled financially later in his life and would eventually succumb to cardiac arrest after suffering from pugilistic dementia, he remains a uniquely indelible figure in a sport that's filled with them. The Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. Okay. Arizona. That's boxer out of Arizona. Michael Carbajal. These are all former active boxers weren't eligible. Mrs. Just Do in the building. Hello, Mrs. Just Do. How are you today? Great to see you. Mrs. Just Do from the legendary Just Do boxing family. Salute, Mrs. Just Do. Appreciate you stopping by today. Always a pleasure to have you. And by the way, Just Do Boxing coming up at 4 p.m. That's who I'm warming you up for. But salute, Mrs. Just Do. And Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and More. Salute, Bruce. Great channel. Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and More. I think he has that quiz on Tuesdays. Right, Bruce? Bruce Gas? Your quiz that you do Tuesdays? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I used to go over there, but man, Bruce started reading up scores. I'm like number 25 or something. But salute, Bruce. Great this. Oh, you got one? Okay. Bruce says he has one tonight. Okay, on Bruce Gas, he has one of those quizzes tonight. I'm going to definitely make it. Great show. Yeah. Bruce Gas. Salute. Okay, you're from Arizona. Michael Carbajal. Greatest boxer out of Arizona. Like I said, no active boxers were eligible. So Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. And by the way, Joe Louis was from Lafayette, Alabama. Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. Finished his pro career, 49 wins, 4 losses with 33 knockouts. There's Bruce Gas's link right there. Okay, for everybody. Yeah. Not subscribed, hit that link right there. There it is. Okay. Yeah, Michael Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. Now, few junior flyweights have ever been as dynamic or packed as much dynamite in their fists as Michael Carbajal, who clearly stands out from a relatively thin list of fighters born in Arizona. But Carbajal, who was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2006, was a genuinely great fighter who just happens to be perpetually overlooked because he competed at 108 pounds. He's one of those lower class fighters. If he was welterweight or something, he would be, always, when you're talking about greatest ever, he would be one of the first 5 to 10 names mentioned. But, fought down at 108 was where he did his best work at. So very overlooked, very underrated. And when I do that list of underrated Monday, Michael Carbajal is definitely going to be on it, for sure. Now, with a record of 15 wins, 3 losses, and 10 knockouts in world title fights, and 9 wins, 4 losses, 5 knockouts against other world champions, Carbajal consistently faced top opposition during his extended run at the elite level. Carbajal was known by the moniker Manitas de Piedras, or Little Hands of Stone, in homage to Roberto Duran, but also a testament to Carbajal's worth as a fighter. Case in point, in 1994, the Ring magazine named Carbajal the greatest junior flyweight ever, which marked a symbolic culmination of the talent he oozed after claiming silver at the 1988 Olympics as part of one of the greatest ever U.S. boxing squads. Now, one interesting fact about Carbajal's career that's both refreshing and aberrant is that he retired with a meaningless win. His last fight, which took place in June of 1999, was a TKO win over then emerging world champion and all-action star Jorge Arce. Ironically, Carbajal was named the Ring's Comeback Fighter of the Year following that movie-worthy swan song, a fitting end to a remarkable career. Michael Carbajal, greatest fighter from Arizona. Arkansas. the Big Bear, Sonny Liston, greatest fighter out of Arkansas, the Big Bear, Sonny Liston. From Johnson Township, Arkansas, Sonny Liston. 50 wins, 4 losses, 39 knockouts for the Big Bear over his career. Okay? Let's excuse me for one moment, please. Sonny Liston, the most feared boxer ever. Sonny Liston. Fighters would just, wouldn't even make excuses, just straight up say, I'm not fighting Sonny Liston. A few of them. Fighters make excuses when they ducking another one or something. They didn't even make excuses, just straight up say, I'm not fighting Sonny Liston. Okay? That's just what it is. Say what you want about me. I'm not getting in there with him. Yeah, but Sonny Liston, greatest fighter from Arkansas. Few fighters have ever possessed as potent a left jab, not to mention as fearsome a scowl as former heavyweight champion Sonny Liston. One of boxing's true marquee intimidators, Liston made opponents quaver and cultivated a demeanor that preceded famous fear inspirers like Mike Tyson and Aaron Pryor. The bulk of Liston's accomplishments came before his ultimately brief stint as the world's heavyweight champion, although his 2 one-round decapitations of Floyd Patterson created an aura of invincibility, the likes of which few fighters have ever had the honor before or after, had the honor and burden of carrying. Now, some of Liston's other marquee wins included stoppages of Nino Valdez, Wayne Bethea, Zora Farley, Albert Westphal, Roy Harris, Mike DeJohn, and Cleveland Williams twice. He beat Cleveland twice. Those are big names around their 50s, 40s, 50s. Maybe your 40s, 50s. Now, of course, Liston is unfortunately best remembered for the role he played in the rise of Muhammad Ali. When they first fought, Ali, then Cassius Clay, was a massive underdog and admitted later to being terrified of Liston. But in a shocking turn of events, Liston was made to quit. And in the rematch, Ali would land his infamous Phantom Punch to score a first-round knockout that is still debated to this day. Yeah, Bruce Gay's father was at that fight, the Phantom Punch fight, right, Bruce? Yeah. Now, Liston would fight on in relative obscurity, given his peak status. After these fights with Ali, and the circumstances surrounding his death remain mysterious to this day. In fact, when Canadian champion George Chuvalo signed to fight Liston in 1970, the embattled former champion had been already dead for a week, right? Nobody knew. When Chuvalo signed to fight, he had already been dead for a week. That's crazy. Wow. Okay, next fighter, next state is California. You don't have any states begin with B? No. California. Remember, no active fighters were eligible. So California is Manuel Ortiz. Manuel Ortiz. There's Manuel. Greatest fighter to come out of California. Born in Corona, California. Now, he had a 131 fight pro career. He won 100, lost 28, had 3 draws, 54 by the knockout route. Okay, for Manuel. Now, Manuel Ortiz was one of the greatest ever bantamweight champions and one of the fighters who defined the 1940s. In 1942, Ortiz defeated Lou Salica to win the world bantamweight title, which he would go on to defend 15 times during his first historic reign. Okay, 15 times. That was his first reign. That initial stint as champion, a dominant 5-year stretch, included a remarkable 8 title defenses in 1943 alone. Now, when one considers the sporadic activity level of today's boxers, Ortiz's 1943 campaign could incredibly stand by itself as Hall of Fame worthy credentials. Okay? Now, although Ortiz would lose his title to Harold Dade in 1947, he would, like so many legendary champions, reclaim it in a rematch and go on to retain it 5 more times before losing to Vic Tywell in 1950. Interestingly, Ortiz was the first fighter entered into BoxRec's online database, which means he has the global ID of 1. first fighter to go in BoxRec, right? Isn't that something? Now, Ortiz, who served in the U.S. Army, unfortunately died from cirrhosis of the liver at age 53 after living in destitution, a tragic end for a legendary champion, Manuel Ortiz, greatest fighter out of the great state of California. Okay? The next state, let me check the chat, see what's happening. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. The next state is Colorado. Greatest fighter out of Colorado, Jack Dempsey, the Manassas Mauler. And his place of birth was Manassas, Colorado. Okay. And Jack had 69 fights during his career. He won 54, 6 losses, 9 draws, 44 knockouts. Okay. That don't seem like too bad of a knockout ratio. Career knockout ratio of 81.4%, over 80. All right. Jack Dempsey, the Manassas Mauler, greatest fighter to come out of Colorado. The Manassas Mauler attained celebrity status that few fighters can fathom. He was the first boxing superstar. Okay, put boxing on the map. First one to really make boxing popular back in the 20s. Simply put, Dempsey at his peak as world heavyweight champion between 1919 and 1926 was the most revered sporting figure in America. Okay, that was any sport. And he during a time when Babe Ruth in baseball, Bill Tilden in tennis, Bobby Jones in golf, and Red Grange in football, Jack Dempsey in boxing. They were called the Big Five of sports in that era, and Jack Dempsey was the most popular of all of them, okay? He was the most revered figure in sports at that time in America. Now, Dempsey, in a literal rags to riches story, went from hopping trains and sleeping in hobo camps to participating in boxing's first $5 million gates, okay? Dempsey is also credited with advancing boxing from a stylistic standpoint. His aggression, power punching, and fluid combinations, and the resulting brutal knockouts set a new benchmark for how to thrill and entertain audiences that sometimes exceeded 100,000 back in the 20s. Exceeded 100,000. This combination of boxing chops, charisma, and the emergence of mainstream celebrity culture in the United States made Dempsey one of those rare figures seemingly destined for his time and place. In boxing, greatness is largely contingent on indelible moments, win or lose, and Dempsey had a plethora of them. His wall-title defense against Argentine Louis Firpo, which saw Dempsey knocked out of the ring before he rallied to stop Firpo. His knockout of Georges Carpenter was the first fight to be broadcast to a mass radio audience. And that was boxing's first ever $1 million gate also. Dempsey famously lost his last 2 fights to Gene Tunney. The last one was a fight that featured the infamous Long Count. But even in defeat, Jack Dempsey confirmed that he was larger than life and that no fight or count could encapsulate all he represented. The Manassas Mauler, Jack Dempsey, greatest fighter to come out of Colorado. Okay. Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't even change it. Here's Jack Dempsey. Damn. Next state is Connecticut. Greatest fighter to come out of Connecticut, the Will-O-the-Wisp, Willie Pep. Willie Pep. From Middletown, Connecticut. And get this. Willie had 242 fights in his pro career. He won 229, lost 11, one draw, 65 knockouts. Those 11 losses is less than 2% of his fights, okay? He lost less than 2% of his fight. 241 fights, lost less than 2% of them. The Will-O-the-Wisp, Willie Pep. Wow. Now, unanimously considered to be one of the greatest pure boxers of all time and the best featherweight to ever don a pair of gloves. Willie Pep, at only 20 years of age, won the New York State Athletic Commission World Featherweight Championship and would go on to amass a record of 134-1 before losing the title to fellow legend Sandy Sadler, which precipitated the start of one of boxing's bitterest rivalries, and they ended up becoming best of friends after their careers. But yeah, they hated each other during their boxing careers. Yeah. Their fourth fight is called the dirtiest fight ever in boxing history. And it was dirty too. I've seen it several times. Now, in their second fight between Pep and Sadler, Pep reclaimed the title by 15-round unanimous decision, although Sadler would ultimately prove to have his number. Tellingly, the Ring magazine in 1997 ranked Pep and Sadler's final fight, which saw Pep succumb by 9th round retirement. Ring magazine calls this fight as the 6th dirtiest fight in boxing history. Some call it the dirtiest. But despite finding his kryptonite in Sadler, Pep's 2 title reigns and stylistic virtuosity secured him an unimpeachable legacy. Interestingly, Pep's legend also extends to boxing's rich apocrypha. There's a newspaper article by Don Rowley, though some speculate it was written by Pep himself, alleging that Pep won a round in his 1946 fight against Jackie Graves without throwing a punch. Whether fact or fiction, Willie Pep seems like the only boxer who could have accomplished such a feat if it actually happened. It would have been done by Willie Pep. It was a newspaper article that claimed that. Some people said it was written by Don Rowley. Some said it was written by Willie Pep himself. Okay. Delaware. Greatest boxer from the state of Delaware, Dave Tiberi. Dave Tiberi. There's Dave. And lights out. Yeah, that was a very controversial fight there. Led to a United States Senate investigation into boxing. Let's talk about it. Dave is from Newcastle, Delaware. 28 fights in his pro career. 22 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws, 7 knockouts. So it's safe to say he didn't have a lot of pop. Okay. With fewer than 1 million inhabitants, the state of Delaware has never been a boxing hotbed. As such, Dave Tiberi, a middleweight contender during the 80s and 90s, tops the list of the best fighters to emerge from this minuscule and mid-Atlantic state, despite never winning a world title. But far from being a mere moral victor, Tiberi should have been crowned IBF 160-pound champion on February 8th, 1992. Should have been. Okay. Now, Tiberi came into that fight, a 10-1 underdog, stepped up to challenge James Toney, who was the defending champion. And Toney was 28 wins, no losses, 2 draws coming into that contest. Now, with Toney emerging as one of the sport's best boxers, the Tiberi fight was viewed as nothing more than a tune-up for Toney. But in what appeared to be a stunner, Tiberi clearly bossed the fight, despite a point deduction in round 6 for a low blow. The scores, though, would tell a different, overtly corrupt story. Tiberi lost a split decision. He won 117-111, that was about right on one card, which was embarrassingly overruled by 2 verdicts of 115-112 for Tony. Now, in the fight's aftermath, an investigation led by Senator William Roth of Delaware, United States Senator William Roth of Delaware, into corruption in boxing, revealed that 2 of the judges were unlicensed to judge fights in New Jersey where the fight took place at. Now, Tiberi was offered a rematch and a far more lucrative purse, as well as a share of the pay-per-view revenue, but he declined on principle, insisting that he be allowed to enter the ring as the rightful champion that he knew he should have been, but they wouldn't allow that. You know, they kept Tony as the champion. Now, although he retired in his mid-20s, Tiberi is hailed as the world champion, okay? Delaware deserved, even if 2 bogus scorecards suggested otherwise. Now, 2 other fighters from Delaware who had intriguing careers that are worth mentioning are Wilmington Jack Daly and Willie Roach. Yeah, Daly and Roach. Okay, it is Tiberi and lights out on the screen. One of the most controversial fights of all time. Started the United States Senate investigation into boxing. That's how controversial that was. Okay, next is Florida. Greatest boxer to ever come out of Florida, Roy Jones Jr. There's Roy Jones Jr. That's B-Hop, right? Yeah, him and B-Hop. Roy Jones Jr. Okay, Roy is from Pensacola, Florida. And he had a 73-fight professional career. He won 64, lost 9, 46 knockouts. Excuse me. Roy Jones Jr. From Pensacola, Florida. Greatest fighter to come out of the state of Florida. Okay. Thomas Hill in the building. Yeah, this show is brought to you by Thomas Hill. You know, we do. Haven't had one in a while, but you take shows out of the chat on Wednesday. But this one is going to be Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 parts. Yeah, the greatest boxer from every state. Brought to you by the legendary, incomparable Thomas Hill. And guess what? He's in the building. Hey, salute T Hill. Appreciate you. We're up to Florida. The greatest boxer to come out of Florida, Roy Jones Jr. Okay, from Pensacola, Florida. Now, when it comes to pure physical gifts and sheer raw athleticism, no contemporary fighter can come close to touching Roy Jones Jr. This isn't to say that Jones is not a sophisticated boxer. Far from it. Rather, it's merely meant to emphasize the extent of his raw talent. A combination of blistering speed, concussive power, and inhumane reflexes that reduce opponents to helpless, plodding punching bags. Okay? It's no surprise then that Jones became the first ever middleweight champion to win a portion of the heavyweight title. Now, along the way, he became a dominant light heavyweight and outclassed the slick and skilled James Toney at 168, when both were undefeated fighters. But more than even his iconic wins, Jones will be remembered for jaw-dropping displays of boxing brilliance. Like when he played possum against Glenn Kelly, with his hands held behind his back, evading punches until he sprung forward to end the fight with a single blow. Remember that one? Now, although Jones continued to fight for somewhat mysterious and ultimate futile reasons long past when he should have retired, right? Not even the harrowing knockouts he suffered at the end can remotely erase the memories of a fighter who helped define the pound-for-pound concept, Roy Jones Jr., greatest fighter to ever come out of Florida. Okay? Next is Georgia. If you're going by birth, right? So Georgia is Sugar Ray Robinson, not exactly where the career is played out of. We're going by where they were born at. So Georgia is Sugar Ray Robinson. And Sugar Ray Robinson is from Alley, Georgia. Alley, Georgia. Sugar Ray Robinson. Wow. How many? I got to add this up. Sugar Ray had a lot of fights. Not as many as Willie Pep. Willie Pep had 241. Sugar Ray had 198. He should have went on and got those two more in, so it could have been an even 200. He's in the 100 knockout club too, with all his other great talents. Sugar Ray won 173 fights, lost 19, had 6 draws, and had 108 knockouts. And at one point, I think he went over 90 in a row, consecutively. Okay, now although the nature of pound-for-pound rankings implied subjectively, as well as degrees of both uncertainty and skepticism, the argument that Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest fighter of all time is almost impossible to counter. Robinson was a seemingly perfect pugilist, a master boxer, and devastating puncher, who reigned as both welterweight and middleweight champion, while earning 1950 Fighter of the Decade honors from the Ring magazine. And he was on his way to getting light heavyweight, but heat exhaustion caused him to retire on the stool. He didn't come on at round 13. And before Sugar Ray went down to heat exhaustion, they had to change referees because of the heat. I think it was like 113 degrees in the ring. They were fighting outside. Mm-hmm. Robinson was such an exceptional fighter that he's generally regarded as arguably the best welterweight and middleweight ever, for at least hovering around the top spot in both divisions. In an era with fewer than half the weight classes that now litter boxing's current landscape, this is an even more remarkable accomplishment. You're back where he fought. Mm-hmm. Robinson's epic 6 fights with Jake LaMotta, of which Sugar Ray won 5, including the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre, is the sort of rivalry that's quite literally no longer possible. LaMotta was the first man to defeat Sugar Ray, but after that initial setback, Robinson would go on to reel off 91 straight wins. While he may have fought on too long, consider this. When Robinson first retired after losing to Joey Maxim in 1952 in an unsuccessful bid for the light heavyweight title, a fight Robinson was winning before he succumbed to heat exhaustion we was talking about. His record was 131 wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws. At that time, enough said. 136 fights with just 3 losses. Like I said, enough said. Okay, the next state is Hawaii. Hawaii. The great state of Hawaii. That's how you say it. Hawaii, not Hawaii. Hawaii. Okay. Bobo Alston, one of those great 1950s middleweights I'm always talking about. Bobo Alston. Here's Bobo hitting the bag. Bobo is from Honolulu, Hawaii. Okay. Bobo had 114 fights. 115, wait a minute. 115 fights. He won 97, lost 16, had 2 draws, and 46 by the knockout route for Bobo Alston. Also for that welterweight too. But I believe he did his best work at middleweight. Okay. Now, former middleweight champion Carl Bobo Alston was named Fighter of the Year for 1953 by the Ring magazine, a defining stretch that saw him finally emerge from the specter of Sugar Ray Robinson, who had already stopped Alston in 1950. and defeated him by decision in 1953. Although Robinson would later knock Austin out on 2 more occasions in middleweight title fights, the Hawaiian would first leave his own mark on the 160-pound division before those Sugar Ray fights. Now, Austin filled the gap of Robinson's initial retirement by decisioning Randy Turpin to become world middleweight champion in 1953, and he would go on to make 3 defenses, including one against legendary Kid Gavilan. Now, like Robinson, Austin would also jump up to light heavyweight, but when he challenged Archie Moore, he was stopped in 3 rounds. Yeah, lost to it was the old Mongoose by then. Old Mongoose got him in 3 rounds. Now, those last 2 stoppage losses to Sugar Ray Robinson came shortly after the Archie Moore fight in 1955 and 56. And Austin would fight on until 1966 with mixed results. But by then, he had already set a new standard for any emerging boxer from Hawaii. An International Boxing Hall of Fame resident, Austin died of Alzheimer's in Honolulu in 2002. Call Bobo Austin. We're going to go up to M's. Then we're going to cut it off and finish up tomorrow. 2-parter. Okay. Idaho. Kenny King, greatest boxer out of Idaho. Kenny King. Kenny on the right. Kenny King. From Emmett, Idaho. 55 fights in his pro career. 51 against just 4 losses. 28 by the knockout route for Kenny. Known as the Emmett Eliminator, Idaho's Kenny King is a state legend who is a cruiserweight contender with a rugged, brawling style that routinely drew raucous crowds in a state that has never been known as a bastion of the sweet science. And make no mistake, the affable King never considered himself a craftsman in the ring. He said, "I was not skilled. I plowed ahead. I may not have been a great boxer or puncher, but I was a good, small-town guy who always plowed ahead." King held 3 minor cruiserweight belts during his career: the WBF, the IBC, and the IBA titles. World Boxing Federation, International Boxing Association, and the International Boxing Club, I guess. Now, although he never challenged for a world championship, one of the major titles, he consistently faced solid competition, and he amassed a remarkable 43-2 record in fights held in Idaho, okay? In 4 defeats, King was only stopped once, and that was in the final round of his last fight, okay? Stopped 1 time in his 55 fights, in the last round of his final fight. Wow. It was a long road to success, too. When King debuted as the 132-pound amateur, he apparently lost 9 of his first 10 fights, and it was told by the State Boxing Commission that he had to stop boxing if he did not improve. Wow. He was so bad, the State Boxing Commission told him, if you didn't get better, Kenny, you're not going to be able to box anymore. And King did develop, holding his aggressive, determined, and frenetic pressure tactics as he rose in weight, claiming a National Junior Olympics title. Yeah, he improved. National Junior Olympics title. He would wait for his father's shift to finish at the sawmill to train together. And it was the humbleness and dedication that allowed King to rise to relative prominence and, more importantly, give back to the state that supported him so unconditionally. King said, I wanted to create not just more boxing fans, but also Kenny King fans. Kenny King demonstrated unequivocally that success in prize fighting isn't solely measured by wins, losses, or world titles. Okay, Kenny King, best fighter to come out of Idaho. Illinois. Packy McFarland. Packy McFarland, greatest fighter to come out of Illinois. There's Packy. Yeah, T. Hill. Kenny was a great one. Yes, he was. Packy is from Chicago, Illinois. Oh. Okay. Now, Packy had 75 fights in his career. Never lost. 70 wins, no losses, 5 draws, 50 by knockout. Okay? Never lost in his career. 70-0. Okay? 50 knockouts. 71.4 knockout ratio. Now, with an undefeated record, lightweight, Packy McFarland is one of boxing history's more curious cases because he never won or even fought for a world title. And yet, in his seminal book, The 100 Greatest Boxers of All Time, Bert Sugar rated McFarland at number 32. High praise indeed in the 100 Greatest Fighters of All Time. Bert Sugar had him number 32. And the man never even challenged, let alone didn't win a world title, was never in a world title fight. And that's high praise from Bert Sugar. You talk about, that's one of the greatest boxing historians of all time. Now, some of McFarland's notable wins include wins over Jack Britton, Freddie Welsh, and Jimmy Britt. Okay? Those are some big names. And that's just to name a few of his opponents. And he fought all these guys before he was even 26 years old, right? And despite retiring just as he was entering his athletic prime, the sterling record that McFarland had amassed proved more than enough to earn him enshrinement in the International Boxing Hall of Fame without a world title. Although he died at age 47, McFarland enjoyed lucrative success in brewing and contracting ventures, and he stayed connected with boxing, mentoring Barney Ross and working with the Illinois Athletic Commission. Yep, Packy McFarland, greatest boxer to come out of Illinois. Indiana, Tony Zale. From Gary, Indiana, Tony Zale. There's Tony. There's Tony Zale. 67 wins, 18 losses, 2 draws. Okay. What's that? 85 fights? Yeah. 45 knockouts. Okay. 2-time lineal middleweight champion Tony Zale is remarkable for a myriad of reasons. For starters, he's one of the rare elite fighters who sustained more defeats during the first half of his career, when he was an emerging contender, than when he ascended to the elite level. He also served in the Navy during World War II, meaning despite being the reigning champion, he didn't fight for 4 years, 1942 to 1946. And then, of course, there's a matter of his genuinely epic trilogy with Rocky Graziano, which took place in a mere 21-month span. 3 fights in 21 months between those two. Remember, we talked about that trilogy a few weeks back when we talked about the great fighters from the 40s. 30s and 40s not named Sugar Ray or Joe Louis. Remember, we talked about that trilogy between him and Rocky Graziano, one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Now, Zale won the National Boxing Association middleweight title with a stoppage of Al Harstack in 1940. You know, the NBA was the precursor to the WBA. He would defend that title while adding the New York State Athletic Commission championship to his haul in 1941. And he defended the NBA 4 times, culminating in his first fight against Graziano. Now, Zale would win in that remarkable contest. That was the Ring Magazine's 1946 Fight of the Year, right? And he took a hellacious beating in that fight before he rallied for the stoppage. Now, the rematch was 1947's Fight of the Year. So the reverse happened, with Graciano taking a beating and fighting back from the brink of being knocked out to halt Zale. Okay? Zale would regain the championship in the rubber match by a third round knockout, putting a definitive stamp on one of boxing's most brutal, iconic, and thrilling trilogies. Even though Zale would lose the title in his final fight, he didn't go out quietly. Instead, in characteristic fashion, he took on all-time great Marcel Cerdan. Zale was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1991. The great Tony Zale. Okay? We got to get all the way to M. Okay? Tony Zale was Indiana. Next is Iowa. Michael Nunn. Michael, second to none. Okay? Greatest fighter to come out of Iowa. Michael Nunn. Okay? Michael was from Davenport, Iowa. 62 pro fights, 58 wins, 4 losses, 37 by the knockout route. After compiling a sensational 168 win, 8 loss amateur career and narrowly missing out on qualifying for the 1984 Olympic team, Iowa's Michael Nunn embarked on a pro career that would see him become a two-weight champion at 160 and 168. At middleweight particularly, Nunn displayed a combination of skills and punching power that had fans and pundits begging him for a sustained run as a pound-for-pound stalwart, pegging him for a sustained run as a pound-for-pound stalwart. Now, during his reign as IBF and lineal middleweight champion, Nunn's impressive victories included his first-round knockout of the year evisceration of Sambu Kalambe in 1989, stoppages of champions Frank Tate and Donald Curry, and decisions over Marlon Starling and Iran Barkley. One fight, though, that could have enhanced Nunn's legacy even further was his shocking knockout loss to James Lights Out Tony, who Nunn was soundly outboxing by scores of 97-93, 98-92, and 98-91, when a lights out left hook detonated against Tunn's jaw in the 11th round, and a follow-up barrage after Nunn had somehow risen prompted a stoppage. Yeah, James Tony, huge upset in that fight, yeah. Nunn was winning widely too, but Michael second to none, greatest fighter to come out of Iowa. Now Nunn, however, would bounce back after the Tony fight and claim the WBA and lineal super middleweight titles, making 4 successful defenses. But despite all this in-ring success, life after boxing would prove tragic. Nunn ended up doing like 15 years in prison, wanted to venture off into the drug world. He's out now. I think he got out like 2019, right? Yeah. I think he got like 20 years. I think he did 15, but he is out. I remember when he was released. Yeah. But yeah, that's a long stretch in the big house, 15 years. Wow. Got convicted of, I think it was drug distribution, among a few other charges. Yeah, it was a big one, drug distribution. The Fed don't play that. Okay, Kansas. Greatest boxer to come out of Kansas, Jess Willett. What the hell is going on? I couldn't find my laptop. It's sitting right in front of me. Jess Willett. There's big Jess. Yeah, Jess was a big guy. Jess Willett, greatest boxer to come out of the state of Kansas. He's from Pottawatomie, Kansas. Okay, he only had 20. Well, that's enough. 28 fights. Okay, 22 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, 20 knockouts. After that Jack Dempsey beating, he retired. Okay. 90% knockout ratio, though. They say after Jack Dempsey beat him so bad, Jess was sitting on his stool crying after the fight, repeating over and over. He said, so I have a farm in Kansas. and I just made $100,000. I have a farm in Kansas, just made $100,000, sitting over there boo-hooing. Jack Dempsey beat him so bad, Jack Dempsey got accused of having something in his hand wraps. But he didn't. He just put a beating on Just Willard. Crush the legend. What's up, Crush? Oh no, 6:30 a.m. Coffee and the donuts with Crush the Legend. Another fire episode out there this morning. Member of that STN, the Sports Talk Network. Salute, Crush, the legend, the realest man in these YouTube streets. Crush tell it like a T.I. is. And Crush will get on you. Crush get on all of us over there in the morning. Salute, Crush. Crush gonna keep it 100, okay? But 6:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. Crush the legend. Salute, Crush. Okay, yeah, we talking about the greatest boxer from every state. We're up to Kansas. Jess Willard is a representative from Kansas, and he's from Potawatomi, Kansas. And right, he had 28 fights, 122 lost 5, 1 draw, 20 knockouts. That was a 90% knockout ratio. Only 2 people went the distance with him. Okay. Now, from sheer size and power punching standpoint, former world heavyweight champion Jess Willard would have found himself right at home amongst the giants that populate today's heavyweight division. Yeah, he was like the only one back there, but he would fit right in today with Fury and Wilder and Zhilei Zhang and Joshua. Yeah. Although sometimes relegated to a transitional footnote in boxing history, the 6'6" Potawatomi Giant, that was his nickname, was the man who ended Jack Johnson's title reign. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Willard was a hellacious hitter who scored knockouts in all but 2 of his wins, 90% knockout ratio. Now, while he wasn't the boxing savant that so many others in these rankings were, Willard did particularly well, considering he turned pro at age 29 after hoping to cash in by exploiting his size in the prize ring. Billed as a white hope, Willard defeated similarly hyped contenders and developed a rabid following as he worked his way towards the shot at Johnson, which took place in Havana, Cuba in 1915. Yeah, Jess Willard. In sweltering heat, Willard stalked and outmuscled the somewhat lethargic champion, scoring a historic knockout in the 26th round of a scheduled 45-round fight against Johnson. Willard would earn a newspaper decision victory in the only successful defense, which came against Frank Moran, setting the stage for his fight against Jack Dempsey. In one of the most savage beatings in boxing history, Dempsey floored Willard 7 times in the first round, cracking the champion's skull. Cracked his skull, okay? Fractured his jaw and shattered some ribs. Willard, though, wouldn't quit. He somehow made it through rounds 2 and 3 on his feet before he was mercifully pulled out of the contest. His defeat final, but his courage unquestioned. And all that fractured skull, shattered, what did he do? Cracked the skull, fractured jaw, shattered ribs, all that was in the first round. And he still made it to the 3rd round before his corner saved him from himself, because Jack Dempsey was going to kill him in there eventually. But Jess wouldn't quit. Fractured skull would have been it for me. You know, the referee wouldn't have had to stop it. I'd have just stopped it. Like that guy did against Effie Ajagba. I'd have stopped and went on back down the steps and on back to the dressing room. Fractured skull. Fought for like 3 rounds with a fractured skull and a shattered jaw and some broken ribs. Jess Willard, greatest fighter to come out. He get the greatest for Kansas just from that right there. Okay, just from that. Okay, next is Kentucky. Y'all know I can go right past Kentucky, but I'm not. Greatest fighter from the state of Kentucky, Muhammad Ali, from Louisville, Kentucky. 61 fights in his career, 56 wins, 5 losses, 37 knockouts. Damn, 30. I got to get all the way to M, L, M. Yeah, M is next, though. We're going to make it. Yeah. The greatest. Or the Louisville Slugger, Muhammad Ali. A lot of people forgot that was his nickname because they called him the greatest. That was his original nickname before the greatest, the Louisville Slugger, Muhammad Ali. Now, it seems wrong to try and encapsulate anything about Muhammad Ali, right? Ali was more than a boxer. He was a cultural icon, a symbol for peace, social justice, and defiance of the establishment. And he was one of the greatest boxers of all time. A gifted pugilist and poetic trash talker who somehow possessed the skills to back up his gift of gab. Wow, it's thundering out there. Now, the facts and statistics of Ali's career hold up against any ring legends and frankly surpass most. A gold medal at the 1960 Olympics in Rome, Italy, a 3-time lineal world heavyweight champion, the only man to accomplish such a feat in boxing's glamour division, 22 wins in heavyweight title fights, and 19 successful defense over 2 title reigns. What's also particularly impressive is that Ali's 19 defenses were evenly split. 9 during his first reign, 10 during his second. And don't forget that Ali was prevented from boxing during his athletic prime due to his courageous anti-Vietnam War stance. Okay? Ali's impact on boxing history, however, extends far beyond mere numbers. His rivalry with Spoken Joe Frazier is arguably the greatest ever, and his knockout of the seemingly invincible Big George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle is one of the all-time upsets and indelible moments in modern boxing history. Not just modern boxing, modern sports, period. Unlike most athletes today, Ali was also a man of profound convictions, standing up against institutionalized racism and inequality. He spoke eloquently and with passion, and he eventually won over the public by never compromising his values. Now, the most incredible thing about Muhammad Ali to me is he had 11 rematches, never lost a one, never lost a rematch, never lost a rematch in his career. 11 rematches in his career, never lost one. The greatest, Muhammad Ali. Okay, Louisiana, Tony Canzoneri. We winding down now. Tony Canzoneri. Yeah. Okay, from Slidell. I don't know what that is. Anybody here from Louisiana? Slidell. Next time I see old school, I'm gonna ask you how you pronounce that. Is it Slidell or Slidell? Anyway, there it is. That's where Tony Canzoneri is from. Now he had, I gotta add, that's 161 fight career, 137 wins, 24 losses, and 10 draws, 44 by the knockout route for Tony Canzoneri. Okay, I'm trying to get to the M's, so we're gonna continue this tomorrow. But I want to get to the M's as the first half. But we had L, so yeah, we're gonna make it. I was trying to get some link time too, but let's see what happens. Now, few resumes in boxing history can match Tony Canzoneri's. During a career that stretched from 1925 to 1939, Canzoneri faced 18 world champions and 6 future Hall of Famers over 161 fights. Right? And he became only the second fighter to ever win championships in 3 weight classes. First to do that, capturing world honors at featherweight, lightweight, and junior welterweight. Yeah, he did it before Henry Armstrong, but Henry Armstrong had 3 at the same time. Tony was the first one to do it, but he didn't have all of them at the same time. Homicide Hank was the first one to do that. Okay. Now, particularly impressive was Canzoneri beating fellow legend Jack Kidd Berg in their trilogy. After Berg had won a 10-round decision in the first fight in 1930, Canzoneri would rebound to dominate and flatten Berg in 3 rounds the next year in 31 to win the lightweight and junior welterweight titles. Only 5 months later, Canzoneri would again beat Berg, this time by 15-round unanimous decision in a fight that featured a controversial foul from Canzoneri, who scored a legitimate knockdown in round 1. In the 8th, prompting the raucous crowd of 18,000 to protest the alleged injustice against Berg. You hit him low and the crowd didn't like that. The other standout names on Canzoneri's ledger include Kid Chocolate, Barney Ross, Jimmy McLaurin, and Johnny Dundee, to name a very select few. Canzoneri shared the Ring magazine's 1934 Fighter of the Year honors with Barney Ross. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. I like reading names fighters fought because, that's important. Wins and losses don't mean nothing. It's who you get those wins against and when. Who and when is very important on a resume. Who you beat and when you beat them, okay? That's very important. I don't care if you got 500 wins, but who did you beat and when did you beat them? Were they a 40-year-old has-been, or were they 31 years in the middle of the prime when you beat them? That's important. Who and when, okay? All right, we're in the M's now. Maine, Joey Gamach from Bath, Maine. B-A-T-H, like take a bath, Bath, Maine, B-A-T-H. 59 fights during his career. He won 55, lost 4, 38 by the knockout route. This Drunk Irishman. What's up, Drunk Irishman? I don't know what's wrong with me. Yesterday I was talking about, I don't know if the Drunk Irishman got a channel. I'm subscribed to him. Drunk Irishman got a great channel. I'm subscribed to him. Salute, Drunk Irishman. Good to see you again, my brother. Always good to see Drunk Irishman. He's been on the panel before. Yeah. Man, I'm crazy. Okay, but salute Drunk Irishman. Scrapbook Boxing had and Hardline Boxing Talk, the realest boxing channels out here. Okay. Oh, that's high praise. You put me up here with Scrapbook Boxing? Oh my goodness. Thank you, Drunk Irishman. You made my day, my week, be in the same sense with Scrapbook Boxing. That is very high praise. I appreciate you, Drunk Irishman. Yeah, Scrapbook. Wow, that makes me feel good. 59 fights for Tony Khan. 55 wins, 4 losses, 38 knockouts. I'm gonna be walking on air for the rest of the day there. That is how. Y'all know who Scrapbook Boxing is? Drunk Irishman put my name in the same sense with Scrapbook Boxing and Hardline Boxing. Wow. But I forgot where I was at now. I got so excited when I saw that. Oh, Tony Combs Canzoneri from, what state is it? Oh, Joey Gamach from Maine. He's from Bath, Maine. Now, Joey Gamach is the only boxer from Maine to ever win a world title, which he accomplished in 1991 with a stoppage of Jerry Nagobini to claim the WBA strap at 130. Now, Gamach would vacate the title without defending it and move up to lightweight, where he would also win the WBA championship by knockout, this time against Chil Sung Jun, South Korea. At that point, in June of 1992, Gamach was 29-0 and a two-weight champion. But he would lose his lightweight title in his first defense when Tony Lopez stopped him in the 11th round in a fight Gamach was edging before he got stopped. He diligently worked his way back in the title contention, which included an NA North American Boxing Federation title winning effort against Jeff Mayweather, only to get blitzed in 2 rounds by Ozbek Nazarov in a bid to reclaim his old belt. Still, Gamach persevered, winning 19 of his next 20 fights, his only defeat coming to legendary Julio Cesar Chavez. And that set up the controversial final act of his career. In February of 2000, Arturo Gatti, who dangerously outweighed Gamach on the night of their fight, scored a frightening knockout that sent Gamach into retirement. See, that's what that weight bullying do to you, man. Gatti shouldn't even have been in that same weight division for that fight. Dangerously outweighed Gamach. Gamach and Gatti and the New York State Athletic Commission. No, Gamach sued Gatti in the New York State Athletic Commission. And while he was not awarded any damages, negligence was found in the handling of weight in process. Camacho deserves to be remembered for more than the Gatti loss, and the former champion has found success in retirement, training boxers, including military champion Boyd Melson. Yeah, see that weight bullying is ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Maryland, the old master, Joe Gans. The old master, Joe Gans. Yeah, I've been sub to you, drunk Irishman, a long time ago. Okay. Joe Gans, the old master from Baltimore, Maryland. 171 fights, 145 wins, 10 losses, 16 draws in the 100 knockout club with 100 knockouts on the dot. Now, although he died of tuberculosis at only age 35, Joe Gans is considered to be one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters of all time, embodying his moniker of the old master. And he used a scientific approach to prize fighting. Although he fought in an era defined by institutionalized racism and segregation, Gans became the first American-born black man to win a world title. Now, Gans achieved this groundbreaking feat in 1902 when he knocked out Frank Ern, who had previously defeated him in a single round. Now, prior to this win, which saw him become the undisputed world lightweight champion, and his first fight against Ern, Gans had only been able to challenge for the colored version of the title. In fact, Gans, as well as other elite black fighters, were often prevented from facing white opponents or pressured into incurring them fixing fights or accepting meager purses. Okay, I'm trying to get through. Okay, yeah. Joe Gans, the old master, greatest fighter out of the state of Maryland, the great state of Maryland. Next is Massachusetts, which is Massachusetts is Sandy Sadler from Boston. 163 fights, 145 wins, 16 losses, 2 draws in the 100 knockout club, 104. It's curious to note that Sandy Sadler was knocked out in his second pro fight, especially because it would be his only stoppage defeat in his career, okay? That spanned 161 fights, right? Knocked out in his second fight. That was the only time. Now, when Sadler finally earned the featherweight title shot after 93 fights, he upset fellow legend Willie Pep by stunning fourth-round knockout. Sadler was a 3-1 underdog. This would begin one of boxing's greatest rivalries, with Pep winning the return fight by 15-round unanimous decision. Yeah, we talked about that when we talked, because Pep was for Connecticut, so let's go past that. Sadler's last featherweight fight against Flash Allarday was actually a win, so his final reign as champion never ended in defeat. Unfortunately, Sadler was forced to retire due to a detached retina, and he sadly suffered from dementia later in life. He had it bad. Still, Sadler's legacy as one of the 3 greatest featherweights had been long since occurred, and he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. Now, him and Willie Pep had, I would say, that one of the dirtiest fights in boxing history. They became the best of friends. And Sadler had that dementia pugilistica bad. I see him and Willie Pep was doing an event together one time, and Sadler was so bad he could barely talk. And they would ask they would ask him and Willie questions, and Willie would have to answer for Sandy, because they would ask Sandy something about the fights with Willie Pep, and Willie would have to ask because nobody could understand. Sandy could barely talk. Yeah, it was sad, man. Real sad. Yep. The next is Michigan. Stanley Ketchum, Michigan. Nope, not Floyd. The Michigan Wolverines. That's Stanley Ketchum. Okay. We go back a ways. There's Stanley. Yeah, hardest featherweight puncher of all time. Yeah, you talking about, Sandy. Right, drunk Irishman. Yeah, in the 100 knockout club. Yes. Stanley Ketchum. from Grand Rapids, Michigan. 58 fights, 51 wins, 4 losses, 4 draws, 48 knockouts. I gotta have that knockout rate. I don't know what is with me and these knockout rates. Always wasting time. But that's 94.1%. He's the greatest fighter for Michigan. Okay. Now, Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan assassin, does indeed befit one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in boxing history. Ketchel was also an all-time great character, the embodiment of Wild West brawling and adventuring. After fleeing home at age 14 for a vagabond life, Ketchel ended up in Montana, where he honed his explosive punching power, working as a barroom bouncer and taking on all challenges in spectacles at a local theater. Okay, eventually though, Ketchel turned to professional boxing. Explosive knockouts of twins Mike and Jack Sullivan propelled Ketchel into a fight against Billy Papke, with whom he would forge a bitter rivalry. Over 4 fights, all for the over 4 fights, all for the world middleweight title, Ketchel would win 3, including a 20-round decision to end matters in 1909. Interestingly, Papke accounted for 2 of Ketchel's 3 wins, where he was extended the distance. Yeah, because he only had 3 wins that went the distance. 2 of those were against Papke. Now, no stranger to Herculean challenges, Ketchel used his 3rd triumph over Pap as a springboard to challenge heavyweight champion Jack Johnson. Now, while some speculate Johnson was told to carry the relatively diminutive Ketchel, there was nothing staged about Ketchel's flooring of Johnson with a right hand in the 12th round, which only prompted the Galveston Giant to rise and drop Ketchel for the count moments later. Amazingly, Ketchel accomplished all of this by the time he was 24 years old. With so much left to give the sport, Ketchel was senselessly murdered by Walter Dipley, a ranch hand who was supposedly jealous of his girlfriend's attraction to Ketchel. A tragically poetic end to a torrid life. Wow. Minnesota. You wasn't messing with that man's girlfriend, was you, Stanley? Wow. The man was jealous. His girlfriend was attracted to Stanley, and the man killed Stanley. He should have killed his girlfriend. It looked like she was the one wrong. Stanley couldn't help if the woman was attracted to him. Damn. And after he killed Stanley, she probably was attracted to somebody else. A cheater gonna be a cheater, right? So what, they gonna kill every man she become attracted to? But let me move on. I'm sorry, I got off track. Minnesota, Tommy Gibbons, right? Tommy Gibbons. He should just kill her and be done with it, because he's gonna have to kill somebody else. But Tommy Gibbons from St. Paul, Minnesota, greatest fighter out of Minnesota. 61 wins, 56 wins, 61 fights, 56 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 48 knockouts. Damn, there go another good knockout rate. I gotta waste some more time. Knockout ratio of 85.7%. Tommy Gibbons. From St. Paul, Minnesota. The city of St. Paul boasts a proud boxing tradition, and although Tommy Gibbons never won a world title, he's a worthy entrant for the state of Minnesota. Gibbons faced the best from his era, leapfrogging from middleweight right up to heavyweight, and he's the only man to last a 15-round distance with ring immortal Jack Dempsey. The other fighters who managed to beat Gibbons, Harry Greb, Billy Miss, and Gene Tunney, with Tunney being the only man to knock Gibbons out, all Hall of Famers. But Gibbons was far more than a gifted boxer and punishing puncher, who compiled a glittering record while ultimately coming up short against the absolute best. Gibbons owns 2 newspaper decision wins over the aforementioned Greb, and he also bested Georges Carpenter, battling Levinsky and Billy Miss, who he faced 5 times. Now, although he went the distance with Dempsey, befuddling the champion with slick boxing and defense, he failed to muster any significant offense. In BoxRec's encyclopedic entry for Gibbons, you'll note that a disappointing live gait led to the three banks of Shelby, Montana going belly up to cover Dempsey's purse, leaving nothing for Gibbons. In other words, Gibbons, a truly great fighter, had to settle for the most harrowing of moral victories. Yeah, we talked about that, the town that went bankrupt. Mississippi, Homicide Hank. Man, I got 3 more to go. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start with Mississippi tomorrow. Okay? Yeah. This is 2 parts. I was trying to get through the M's today, but I got 3 more. So we're going to start with Mississippi tomorrow. Okay? Yeah. I only had 2 more. I had Mississippi and Missouri, but we're going to start with them tomorrow. Because we should be, the second half is shorter than the first half. Okay. I can get Henry Armstrong. Well, no, start with Mississippi tomorrow. Okay, but I appreciate everybody coming through today. And tomorrow is the second half of the greatest fighter for every state. Salute Tim Layton in the building. Hashtag JBT. What's up, Tim? How are you today? Good to see you. Yeah, Tim, we was doing the greatest box from every state. Brought to you by Thomas Hill. You know, Wednesdays is if I have one to take shows out of the chat. This is Tuesday, but it's going to go into Wednesday. So, yeah. Tomorrow we will start with Homicide Hank in Mississippi. MIS, SIS, SIPPI, Mississippi. Appreciate everybody, though. Just Do Boxing is up next in these streets. And then Thursday, we're starting a new series because the boxing in the States ended with Wyoming last week. So Thursday is going to be boxing around the world. We're going to go through some countries and look at some history of boxing and some significant events like great venues in these countries and great fights that happened over the years in these countries and some great boxers from these countries. And guess what? We're going alphabetical order. Guess what Thursday is? Afghanistan. I found some history in Afghanistan for boxing and some boxers from there too. So boxing around the world, history of boxing in Afghanistan Thursday. And Friday is the first Friday of the month. And that's when we do active boxing. This will be the second one. Remember, we started with Canelo first Friday in June. This month is going to be the life and career of Gervonta Tank Davis Friday. Okay? But let's see. Salute to the people that stopped by today. Tim Layton, Drunk Irishman, Crush the Legend, Thomas Hill, Bruce Gass, Mrs. Just Do, Define Irony 1, Mike Mazik, Mike Grimm, Azim Shabazz, and Miss Cass. Appreciate everybody 1000%. Don't forget tomorrow is part 2. Start with Mississippi, the greatest boxer from every state in the United States. And Monday is going to be the show on most underrated boxers in history. That was supposed to be today, but I said this is going to be 2 days, so do this and do that Monday, okay? But appreciate everybody. We'll continue this tomorrow, okay? Because if it's Monday through Friday at 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian bringing you all that boxing history. Just Do Boxing is up next. This is Cass Sports. Everybody have a great afternoon. Appreciate y'all. Come on, man.